Hey, it's Lama Anderson and welcome to the news. Your local Kasi, urban, rural news, your African news, international news. In fact, any news you can think of, you can find it here. So if that's your thing, please subscribe. Also give me a like if you're enjoying the content. And please give me 100 likes for 100% effort. And also please support us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Today's headlines: Chidimma, Adetshina's mom, has actually been uncovered to have actually bought her identification, her ID number at Home Affairs, and she stole the identity of a woman from Tshwane. They are trying to privatize another state-owned enterprise, and this time they are going after Transnet. The Democratic Alliance leader, John Steenheisen, is assuring us that he's the one who's really in charge in the Democratic Alliance. Busisiwe Mkhwebane has applied to get her retirement fund, which is the amount of 10 million rands. So our first story, the Home Affairs has actually uncovered the real identity of the person whose identity was stolen by Chidimma, Adetshina's mom. It's a woman from Tshwane. This woman had to suffer for her whole life. Imagine from 1995, when she first applied for an ID, she was told she was a duplicate. But Home Affairs just let it slide and gave her an ID. The real issue happened in 2001 when she tried to apply for a birth certificate for her child. And she was told that there is another child under her name, and the name is Chidimma Adetshina. Here's a quick background of Home Affairs investigation so far. So on Monday, 5th August 2024, the organizers of the Miss South Africa sent the Department of Home Affairs a request to verify the citizenship of the contestant. Upon receiving the request, the department endeavored to retrieve the records of the contestant and her mom. A team of investigators and civic services officials was established to investigate the registration of the births for both the mother and her daughter. A preliminary investigation found that there was a prima facie indication of fraud committed by Chidimma, Adetshina's mother. An innocent South African mother whose identity may have been stolen as part of the alleged fraud committed by Adetshina's mother suffered as a result because she could not register her child. This is the background of the whole investigation. Prima facie evidence, meaning at first look, the first thing they saw when they investigated was identity fraud by Chidimma's mom. And more corruption being uncovered at the Department of Home Affairs. The department has identified the officials who registered the birth at the Home Affairs office in Johannesburg. One of the officials has passed on. The department is investigating two other officials who may have been involved in the alleged fraudulent scheme. The department has relied on its records to establish that South African mother, whose identity may have been stolen, was registered by her mother in 1982, and as a result she was entered into the National Population Register. Her birth was registered in Tshwane in 1995. She applied for an ID. 3 months after the application, she returned to Home Affairs to collect her ID. So this whole drama basically started in 1982. Imagine that. That's more than 30 years. So I'm quite thankful that the South African government was prudent and actually thought for the people that we should actually access apartheid records. So the Home Affairs pre-apartheid is still the same Home Affairs after apartheid. So the whole department, they can actually access old files, even 40 years, 30 years, and I bet even 100 years, they can actually access all those files from Home Affairs. So I'm quite thankful for that. This lady registered her child in 1982, right? And this child is this lady that Chidimma's mother stole the identity of. So she was born in 1982, she had an identity, and then in 1995, when she actually went to Home Affairs to actually register for an ID, because remember, back in the day, you could sit for like 5 years, 10 years, without actually having an identity document. Nowadays, you cannot live without your ID. So she went there, I think it was 10 years after her birth, to actually register her ID. And when she actually registered her identity, that's when she discovered that she had a duplicate ID. The tricky thing about these investigations is actually tracking the people who are responsible for all of this mess. For example, many people have passed away. I mean, it's been more than 20 40 years. Buthelezi was the Minister of Home Affairs in 2001. He also passed away. And as we read, one of the other officials at Home Affairs actually passed away. So if we can check in 1982, how many people were actually involved? So when was the fraudulent activity actually happening? When did it happen? The actual date. On her return to Home Affairs, she learned that her ID was issued in Johannesburg at an office where she had not applied for. She then gave birth in 2001. When she went to register her child at Home Affairs, she discovered that there was a child registered under her ID number. The name of the child registered was Chidimma Vanessa Enwe Adetshina. She then spent months before she could be given a new ID number. Imagine that. She had to forfeit her old ID number because it was fraudulently taken from her, and now she had to get a new ID number. I wonder why Home Affairs' alarms didn't ring at this point. They should have known that something wrong definitely happened. But anyways, Home Affairs has visited the address listed for Mrs. Adetshina's mother and that of the lady whose identity was stolen. The information shared by the family of the lady whose ID was stolen in Tshwane matches the details contained in the Department of Home Affairs records. Well, it seems like a clear case of identity fraud, but this goes way deeper than we think. Now, let's think about it. Adetshina actually has a husband who she got married to, and we know that the husband is actually Nigerian, of Nigerian descent, as a matter of fact, because once they got married here in South Africa, he became a South African citizen. Now, what should we do with his ID? What if we actually discover that he actually used his ID to marry other women who actually became South African citizens later on? Now, the rabbit hole goes way deeper. Now, this is just one case, one incident that actually happened. What about the other people in South Africa? Many people are actually saying that we should investigate everyone that had an ID should be investigated here in South Africa. But I don't advocate for that. Why? Well, it's quite obvious, because Home Affairs is corrupt. So if you think they cannot be corrupt against you, you have another thing coming. If you're saying that they should investigate all the IDs in South Africa, what if you discover it by yourself that your ID was acquired fraudulently? Because we don't know what our parents were up to. We don't know what our parents actually needed to do to get us here on this earth and actually give us rights. Because our parents, at the end of the day, as we can see with Adetshina's mom, they are willing to do anything for our protection. They are willing to give us fraudulent documents so we can live a normal life. This other lady actually said it, that at this point, if we were to actually investigate everyone, we will never solve the problem in 5 years. It could take like 30, 40 years, because how many people would actually get arrested at Home Affairs? I bet there are many people who are corrupt out there. With all of that being said, Chidimma might survive all this PR. Let's think about it. At the moment, she's running for Miss Nigeria, Miss Universe Nigeria, and she's on the lead. She might even win. And once she wins, and I don't like this, what South Africans actually did after the whole Chidimma saga, because what happened was they actually trolled Miss Nigeria. They went on Miss Nigeria and actually voted for Chidimma. That's why she's in the lead. Right now, people were going online and saying that we are voting this girl, she's South African, we are bringing it home. Basically trolling. So with that trolling happening, she's on number one. In the real world, in real life, she's actually doing something. And when she actually wins Miss Nigeria, she'll actually have the power and the voice to actually say something back to all those people who actually uncovered all of this about her. She'll probably call us out as South Africans. I can assure you, as South Africans, will be called out. And that's the reason I cannot really say, oh, I'm not phobic, I haven't said anything, because when I go to other countries, they won't really care what my stance is. We are South Africans, we are one package. If one person is a phobia, the rest of us are phobias. So you can call us all kinds of names. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So even if she were to win, she were to call us out, it wouldn't really matter. Even if she were to call us out for cyber bullying, But anyways, you may be asking, what's the way forward from here? Will everyone get arrested and this thing will just be nipped in the bud and we'll just forget about it? What will happen to her Nigerian citizenship? Did she acquire it legally, just like the South African citizenship, which was not acquired legally? Hey, we may never know. So anyways, we'll keep on investigating and uncovering, and I'll bring you the news as your journalist. Just subscribe, also like if you're enjoying the content so far. Anyways, let's continue with the show. Our next story is quite sad. Another state-owned enterprise is being sold. They want to make it a private company, meaning that the people of South Africa will actually suffer. If you didn't know, there are state-owned enterprises, and state-owned enterprises are not meant for profit. They are meant to serve the people of South Africa. South Africa's Fright News reads, in its integrated report for the year end March 31, Transnet said its plans to spend 84.9 billion rands in the next 5 years on the infrastructure at Transnet Frail Rail, the utility's largest operating division. However, to accomplish this, Transnet will, out of necessity, have to generate liquidity through the sale of assets. Now, let me make it clear. These are state-owned enterprises, state-owned assets, meaning that the people's assets are being sold. These are the assets through the tax dollars money, no one else. Not private, the people own these assets. So why are they selling the assets of the people? In fact, they shouldn't sell Transnet, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's continue reading. Transnet has been under pressure for its faltering services on the key rail corridors in the country, from Durban to Johannesburg, Sishen to Saldanha, and the dedicated coal line to Richards Bay from the country's coal basin in southern Mpumalanga. The knock-on effect has been on the use of the road transport to various destinations, which has been devastating effect on the country's road infrastructure. Yeah, I know many people are not aware of this. We need Transnet for the transportation of goods, export, imports, transportation of goods within the country. Because if you didn't know, aeroplanes, cars, that's wear and tear. That's more expensive than trains. Even as a source of transport, we need Transnet, we need trains. So Metro Rail, the whole department, because if we didn't know, all the trains fall under one umbrella, and that whole umbrella includes transportation. It means when you go to work, you will want trains to be an alternative. You don't want trains to be the most expensive form of transportation. Trust me, it will get there. We all know that when it comes to the train, we have that special train that arrives on time. It costs a bit more, is more luxurious. You get even coffee on the train. It's a special train, but I forgot like the name of that train. But they could just do that all over the show. Like they can have all the trains to be like that, and when they are like that, they'll charge people extra. But what I'm hoping for is the introduction of Gautrain. When you have Gautrain, it's a different department, but it's still railway. That's another department they can go through and make sure that it actually transport all the goods. But you know how train is for the people, it's actually transporting people, it's not actually for, transporting goods. So when it comes to that, it might be a bit tricky. But at the end of the day, we need all the state-owned enterprises to stay with the people. Check out the post office. Do you honestly think that all the people in South Africa can actually afford a courier services? Courier is very expensive. When you have to send like a letter, they'll probably charge you. While at the post office, they don't charge you for a letter. They only charge you when it's something heavy. But when it comes to the courier, they'll make sure that they squeeze the rest of the economy because they know that they have a monopoly. You don't want companies to come as private companies and they have a monopoly on a government department. Imagine the post office being owned by Amazon or being owned by Google. Do you know how much you'll be paying at that point? So we want a state-owned enterprise. Even the post office, even the Metro Rail, even SAA, because for the longest time we were complaining about the South African Airways being privatized, and thank God it was not privatized. It's still owned by the state. So now Metro Rail. Let's make sure that Transnet doesn't become privatized. We need all the resources that belong to the country and to the people must stay with the people. And our next story, former public protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane won't be getting her gratuity, meaning she won't get her retirement money. And the reason for that, well, we know the reason for that is because she was dropped as a public protector. By who? President Cyril Ramaphosa. For what reason? For real? Let's read further. The Business Day reads, no legislation or provision entitles former public protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane to receive a large gratuity payment as she was removed from office and did not vacate the position as required by the Public Protector Act, the Pretoria High Court heard on Tuesday. Basically, this means that because she didn't actually resign from the office and she was fired, she there forfeited her money. She should actually have resigned. So, but anyways, let's continue. Mkhwebane applied to the High Court, insisting she was entitled to the 10 million gratuity payment given to public protectors once they vacate the office after the National Assembly impeached her. Many people have been wondering for the last couple of years why Busisiwe Mkhwebane was actually impeached. And it's not the reasons that they gave. It was some weakest reason. They said she actually wasn't doing her work. She was incompetent. Like, weakest reasons. But anyways, the real reason that we know now, because she was investigating the Phala Farm Gate scandal, that's the reason President Cyril Ramaphosa had to remove her. Because imagine the public protector. Well, the job of the public protector is to actually protect the public. But if your boss, you're actually reporting on your boss, you know what will happen. Your boss will fire you. So she was actually the one who was in the forefront to actually investigate Cyril Ramaphosa. And now she's been impeached. So what can we say now? And our last story, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenheisen, is assuring us that he is the one who's actually in charge. And it's not Helen Zille. Okay, I'm sure he didn't say the last part that it's not Helen Zille who's in charge, but we all know the truth. And when it comes to John, we can simply ask the question, does he feel in charge? Maybe we should pull a bane on him. Do you feel in charge? If you feel in charge, then I guess, John, you are in charge. So yeah, that's the video for you today. Those are the news. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed, please slap a like on it. Please subscribe for more news in the future. Please support us on Patreon. And Lulama Anderson, you can search for it. The link is also in the description below. Also check me out on social media, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. You can simply Google me at Lulama Anderson, but the links are in the description as well. But anyways, for now, it's Lulama Anderson. Sharp, sharp.